I've never seen such terrifying metal-eating bugs before. One turns into two, two into four. They reproduce at an alarming rate, just by consuming metal. The diamond-tipped drill bit, which was intact just a moment ago, has been gnawed halfway through in the time it took the worker to look away. The man panicked, desperate to get out of there, but in just the 3 seconds it took to swipe his card, his sleeve was already full of holes. He shouted frantically for the door to be opened, but the officer wouldn't let him out, insisting on further observation. The man screamed in terror, as his clothes were reduced to rags. Eventually, he collapsed, bloodied and gasping, while the oxygen tank behind him had been chewed through. Just then, a sharp-eyed researcher noticed something unusual. The support frame was melting. The officer rushed over and saw that the metal structure binding the giant was being eaten away, and even the bulletproof glass was starting to crack. The officer hit the emergency button, and flames erupted instantly. The temperature soared to tens of thousands of degrees, nearly incinerating everything within the chamber. These are the world's most formidable metal-eating bugs. Just as the giant was about to break free, they quickly launched flames at it. To their shock, the giant was completely unaffected. The officer was terrified. What on earth was this creature made of? Suddenly, the giant's eyes emitted beams of light, and it raised its hands in a signaling gesture. In just 0.01 seconds, the giant's hands began to disintegrate and transforming into tens of thousands of metal bugs. Alarms blared throughout the laboratory. In the next moment, the swarm of metal bugs broke through the bulletproof glass, overrunning the lab. Outside the lab, the military was fully prepared for battle. Just then, the lab's doors began to warp. The several-ton doors burst into the sky before crashing heavily to the ground. As the metal bugs swarmed out, the troops immediately unleashed a barrage of gunfire. Tank shells rained down on the bugs. But strangely, instead of being destroyed, the bugs reproduced even faster. The metal-eating bugs were unstoppable, devouring every metallic material in their path. Weapons seemed to act as accelerants for their growth. None of the soldiers survived. They all became a feast for the bugs. A driver was casually listening to music when he noticed cracks appearing on his windshield. He thought it was just some dirt and activated the wipers, but to no avail. Little did he know that a swarm of metal bugs was rapidly approaching from behind. In an instant, the car was consumed, leaving only tire sparks behind. In the blink of an eye, both the car and the driver vanished into thin air. As the swarm of metal bugs grew even larger, a roadside billboard was devoured in just 3 seconds. A stadium capable of holding 100,000 people crumbled to the ground as the metal bugs arrived, collapsing from the inside out and being mercilessly leveled to the ground. But where did this giant come from? To understand, we have to go back to a few days earlier. A massive glowing sphere suddenly appeared in the city, causing widespread panic as people fled in fear. As the sphere descended, it unleashed a gale-force wind that overturned benches and sent debris flying. The military was alerted and quickly deployed via helicopter, bringing along a team of scientists to investigate. Helen, a leading astrobiologist, was part of the mission. She accompanied the armed personnel to the site of the glowing sphere. A large number of soldiers swiftly secured the area, with snipers and gunners in position, surrounding the sphere with their weapons trained on the target. They were ready to fire at a moment's notice. Suddenly, a flash of white light illuminated the scene, and a humanoid figure emerged from the smoke. Just as Helen was about to shake hands with the being, a gunshot rang out. A soldier had fired a bullet, striking the alien. Without hesitation, Helen rushed forward and embraced the injured figure. Humans are truly foolish. During their first peaceful encounter with an alien, the military fired a shot, hitting it. Angered, the alien summoned a giant from the glowing sphere, a colossal figure as tall as an 18-story building. As the giant took a step forward, his eyes flashed red, instantly disabling all weapons, even causing police car lights to go out. The giant emitted a piercing noise that made people clutch their heads in pain and collapse to the ground, rendering them completely incapacitated. The giant then approached Helen, raising its hand to strike her. In that critical moment, the alien intervened, commanding the giant to stop. The giant halted its attack, and as the red light in its eyes faded, everything returned to normal. The people slowly got to their feet, curious about what other powers this giant might possess. The alien was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. The doctors administered local anesthesia and made an incision on its surface. For the first time ever, humans were performing surgery on an extraterrestrial. The doctors removed a small sample to send to the lab for DNA analysis and successfully extracted the bullet. Just then, something extraordinary happened. The alien's muscle tissue began to disintegrate as it shed its skin. As the outer layer peeled away, it revealed a human figure beneath. The US Secretary of Defense questioned the alien, asking about its purpose on Earth and whether it posed a threat to humanity. The alien, who introduced himself as Klaatu, explained that he represented a civilization here to negotiate with humanity. Upon learning that the Secretary of Defense couldn't represent all of humanity, Klaatu refused to disclose further information. The Secretary then ordered Klaatu to be sedated for further interrogation. Klaatu was taken to the interrogation room, where they connected a polygraph to his head. At first, Klaatu cooperated, but faced with a hostile interrogator, he unleashed his superpowers. Don't even think about interrogating an alien. Klaatu is ruthless and refuses to speak much. He unleashed a powerful brainwave that shocked the interrogator, causing his body to convulse uncontrollably. When the interrogator got back on his feet, he was already under Klaatu's control. Klaatu extracted the location of the base's exit, observed the guards outside through the surveillance system, and took note of the camera layout. With a simple closing of his eyes, the guards outside were suddenly struck with excruciating headaches, collapsing to the ground and losing all combat ability. Klaatu donned the interrogator's suit and casually walked out of the base. It turned out that the injection Helen gave him wasn't actually a sedative. She had secretly switched the drugs, allowing Klaatu to escape. With Helen's help, they drove to a McDonald's, where Klaatu met his alien companion, a man in his 70s. From him, Klaatu learned that humanity is inherently destructive and unwilling to change, leading Klaatu to decide to activate the program to destroy humanity. After bidding farewell to the old man, Klaatu and the others drove to a lake deep within a forest. At the lake's center, Klaatu summoned a massive glowing sphere. He pressed his hand against it, initiating the Earth's destruction sequence. At that moment, images of the sphere appeared from the desert, rainforest, and under the sea, with reports of the phenomenon coming in from all over the world. Realizing what Klaatu was about to do, eliminate humanity to save the Earth, Helen pleaded that humans are capable of change, but Klaatu remained unconvinced. Meanwhile, the military tracked down the alien giant and dispatched helicopters to take it down. Sensing the threat, the giant activated its defense mode, intercepting incoming missiles and causing the helicopters to lose control. With just a glance, the giant caused the helicopters to crash. Having witnessed the giant's power, the military changed tactics. They ceased all attacks and gunfire, instead using containment barriers to seal the giant and place it in an underground facility. They tried every method possible. The metal bugs kept multiplying, one turning into 2, and 2 became 4. The metal bugs originated from the metal giant, a being so tough that even a diamond-tipped drill couldn't harm it. However, despite numerous attempts, nothing could destroy the giant. They decided to use a diamond drill, but the bit broke immediately after being replacement. They had no choice but to send in specialists for repairs. However, the bugs began eating away at the giant's restraints. Ignoring the lives of the repair crew, the commander ordered it to be burned at the highest temperature possible, but the giant remained unscathed. Suddenly, the giant transformed into tens of thousands of metal bugs, ruthlessly devouring everything around them. The barrage of firepower not only failed to destroy them, but also made the swarm even more powerful. As the light orb sprang up all around, the world descended into chaos. There were severe shortages of food and fuel, and riots broke out everywhere. The government launched a full-scale manhunt for Klaatu. Meanwhile, Klaatu was in hiding with Helen and her son, Jacob. Jacob, having witnessed Klaatu initiating the program and ramming a police car with their vehicle, secretly provided the military with their location. The army immediately sent troops to capture them. Helen was abducted. Helicopters attempted to capture Klaatu. Just as the soldiers were about to open fire, the helicopter lost control, swaying wildly before crashing to the ground in a fiery explosion. Jacob was terrified and fled, running onto a narrow bridge. He turned back to Klaatu, begging for mercy, nearly falling into the water in his panic. Klaatu, with quick reflexes, caught the boy just in time. Realizing that Klaatu had no intention of harming him, Jacob decided to stay with him. The two made their way to an old, dilapidated house, where Jacob called Helen, arranging a meeting place. Jacob then led Klaatu to a cemetery, pleading with him to bring his father back to life. Jacob had seen Klaatu heal a wounded police officer with his own eyes, but Klaatu disappointed him by explaining that his father had been gone for too long. Even he was powerless to help. Jacob fell to his knees, crying uncontrollably. At that moment, Helen arrived and embraced her son. telling him that his father hadn't disappeared. He was just with him in a different way. The Earth was on the brink of destruction. Helen and Jacob embraced tightly, leading Klaatu to witness another side of humanity. Despite the harm they had inflicted on the Earth, they were capable of tenderness and a wide range of emotions. As the swarm of metal bugs drew closer in the sky, Helen's eyes welled up with tears, and she pleaded with Klaatu to stop everything. "Please, give us a chance," she begged. Klaatu was moved and decided to use his powers to stop the impending disaster. They drove to New York, where they found the largest light orb. Swarms of metal bugs had gathered around it, nearly blotting out the sky. The three of them rushed to a nearby bunker, but they knew it wouldn't hold for long. Suddenly, Jacob started bleeding from his nose and collapsed into Helen's arms. Klaatu examined him and discovered that the metal bugs had entered the boy's body. Helen, too, realized she was infected. The metal bugs kept multiplying endlessly, and billions of them were set to consume the entire Earth, even burrowing into human bodies. Desperate, Helen begged Klaatu to save her son. In this critical moment, Klaatu took both of their hands and took on the metal bugs himself. He realized that, in the face of existential threats, humans truly could change. Klaatu stood up and resolutely walked toward the light orb. The metal bugs continued to devour his body, tearing his clothes and revealing deep wounds. The swarm, like a harbinger of death, consumed Klaatu mercilessly, but he remained fearless, his steps unwavering. Finally, he reached the orb and raised his hand to shut down the program. And so, as he touched it, he disintegrated into nothingness. The orb released a massive burst of energy, turning the metal bugs to ash. The global power grid collapsed, and solar panels, factories, and trains all ground to a halt. As the white light from the orb faded, the world returned to its former calm. Helen and Jacob bid the orb farewell. As it slowly ascended into the sky, Klaatu was returning to his home planet. This film is called The Day the Earth Stood Still. It's a great movie, and I highly recommend everyone go watch the original. That's all for this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.